What's up, Joe? What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Sports 360. I'm Jeff Fennell, and as always, I'm here with Rob Duran of Rob Duran Sports. Rob, man, what's cooking? How you doing?
Hey, man, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good too. I'm doing better than a lot of Mets fans, I think. We're talking on this Monday after the trip to Atlanta. Um, it didn't go so well for our Mets, And look, I've been in front of Chip Carey ever since he made that comment, and I'm sure he's like basking in his glory. I told you things would be different when they come to Atlanta. And if you don't know by now, the Mets went to Atlanta a game up with 6 to play, game up in the NL East, and promptly got swept by the Atlanta Braves. And so now the Mets are 2 games back with 3 to play, and the Braves have the tiebreaker should they end up tied. So essentially the Mets are 2.5 games back, right? With 3 to play. So I think it's safe to say, Rob, that the NL East division belongs to the Atlanta Braves again for the 5th season in a row. I think coming into the season, if you'd have told me Atlanta would win the division and the Mets would be the first wild card, I think most Mets fans would have taken that and said, hey, this is great. But right now, it doesn't feel so great, I think, for a lot of Mets fans because of the way it happened, with the Mets being in first place most of the year and then, you know, letting it slip through their fingertips here at the end of the season.
Yeah, it's a real gut punch. I think I would describe it as what happened with the Mets. And I'll give you credit, Jeff. You've been very cautious with the Mets and them being in first place most of the year, playing so well for a long time. And I've been the optimistic one here, even as a Yankee fan, saying, no, the Mets got it. Relax, Jeff. The Mets got it. So I'll give you credit for that, for staying cautiously optimistic, we'll say. But yeah, man, it's a gut punch. The Mets had their 3 best starters, I think, going, obviously with DeGrom and Scherzer, both taking the loss. So I think you go into the series with the circumstances, end of the year, pretty much the division on the line, so to speak. And I think when you look at who the Mets had going, I think you would have put your money on the Mets cautiously, but still put your money on them based on the pitching matchups. But man, Atlanta's no joke, man.
No.
They're scary good, and they're hot and ready to roll for the playoffs. So yeah. I think, obviously the Dodgers have the best record in baseball, 110 wins right now, but Atlanta is a team to watch out for because they're no slouch.
No, they're not. And, they're a well-rounded team. Offensively, they have a lot of firepower. Starting pitching, even with Spencer Strider being out right now, they still, especially in the postseason when you're going to reduce your rotation anyway, they still are strong with Fried and Kyle Wright and Charlie Morton. You know what I mean? So they still have that. And then their bullpen is excellent.
Yeah.
The acquisition of Raisel Iglesias has really solidified that bullpen. Kenley Jansen seems to have his act together right now. They got Masick and Minter and Jesse Chavez, and even Colin McHugh gives them good innings and things like that. So I think overall, they're just a well-rounded team. They can be beat and they can be pitched to, because again, in this series, the games were close, but the Braves were just better. And Rob, I want to talk a little bit about the rotation and how the Mets went into the series, because the original plan was to have Bassett pitch game 1. In other words, the way their rotation was really set up was Bassett, DeGrom, Scherzer. And then on the Thursday off day leading into the weekend series, the Mets switched it up and put DeGrom first and put Bassett for the Sunday night game, the third game of the series, which had the effect of putting Bassett on 8 days rest. And, sometimes you hear about pitchers who have, extended rest, saying I'm too strong. You know what I mean? I was too strong. Again, baseball players, like most athletes, are creatures of habit. And if you're used to pitching every 5 days, and now at the critical juncture, with this critical series, the Mets rejiggered their rotation, and Bassett ended up pitching on 8 days and so forth. I didn't like that move when it happened because, one, I didn't think DeGrom had been pitching that well coming in. He had lost to the Cubs. He couldn't hold on to a lead against the Pirates. He got slapped around the park in Oakland, right? Now think about that. Cubs, Pirates, Oakland. The last three starts coming into this series, and DeGrom was like struggling. And then you're going to put him up front. And I understand he's DeGrom, but I'm saying Cubs, Pirates, Oakland,
Yeah.
and he's struggling with them. And you're going to put him up front to start the series at the expense of having Bassett pitching on 8 days rest. And DeGrom goes out there, gives up 3 home runs. Mets lose 5-2. And, that's how the weekend gets started. I didn't like that move, Rob. I didn't like, rejiggering your rotation at the last minute, especially if it meant, giving Bassett perhaps too much rest. And last night his control was not there. And you just wonder
Yeah.
if he was just too strong.
Yeah, and that, like you said, that a lot of pitchers are even against like a six-man rotation because of that extra day of rest. So yeah, that might have thrown Bassett completely off. I don't like the move either because, like you said, DeGrom is DeGrom, but he's not pitching like DeGrom right now, not recently. So you wonder if there's some lingering, effects or something going on from the injury. But yeah, man, it's just not. Maybe they switched it up. Maybe they're kind of setting up for October for the playoffs, which a lot of teams do. But I think when you're going into a series like this, where there's still a lot of implication as to what happens, because like I said, you want to have the division, especially in the National League, where there, at least for me, like there's so many strong teams in the National League going into the playoffs. You want to try to have home field advantage, win the division. Any chance you can get, take it. And I don't think putting DeGrom first right there was the best option for the Mets. I think you had to continue it how you had it, and then figure out the playoff stuff later on. Once you've locked up the division, I mean, you got 3 guys in DeGrom, Scherzer, and Bassett who can go in a game 1. But for this series specifically, I think you had to keep Bassett at 1, and then figure out the rotation from there, whether it was Scherzer or DeGrom in game 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you, man. I didn't like the move either.
Yeah. Because to me, this series is more important because if you could position yourself in this series and then take care of things against the Nationals coming out of
Mm-hmm.
this series, then you're going to get the bye. So you have plenty of time to get your guys some rest and have your rotation set up for the LDS. You know what I'm saying? So to
Yeah.
me, I wouldn't be looking ahead to the playoffs because this series is going to determine whether you're going to be a wild card or, largely determine whether you're going to be a wild card or the division winner. And so in my mind, I would have just, wanted to come in here and keep things the way they were and then go from there. But, it's really interesting, Rob, because Max Fried went 5 innings because he got sick and they had to take him out, but he went 5. Kyle Wright went 5. And Charlie Morton couldn't even get through the 5th inning. So it wasn't as if the Brave starters dominated the Mets. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they pitched into the
Yeah.
7th inning and all the rest of that. But the Mets, as has been, I think, one of their Achilles heels all year, weren't able to get the timely hit with men on base. They had, in the first 3 innings, they had like 9 hits against Charlie Morton. You know what I'm saying? But it only had 3 runs because, they just couldn't get that timely hit. And 2 of the runs were solo home runs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By McNeil and Vogelbach. So you think about that. 7 other hits produced only 1 run. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Crazy.
because they get guys on base, but then they can't get them across. And that was a big part of it. But I want to give you something, Rob, that I wrote down before we got on the air here. Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso for the Mets, the key cogs offensively for the Mets, no doubt about it. Alonso leads the league in RBIs. Lindor has over 100 RBIs from the shortstop position, set a record for home runs and RBIs for a Mets shortstop. So he's had, a really good year. In the series, Lindor's a shortstop, Alonso's a first baseman. Lindor was 2 for 13. Alonso was 3 for 10. And they had no RBIs. Right? But meanwhile, their counterparts, Dansby Swanson, shortstop for the Braves, and Matt Olson, the first baseman for the Braves. Swanson was 4 for 11 with 3 home runs and 4 RBIs. And Olson was 5 for 9 with 3 home runs and 5 RBIs.
Wow.
See, to me, right? See, the Mets, you can't have your big guns getting outperformed like that.
Yeah.
In a series like this. And I'm not putting it all on Lindor and Alonso, right? This was a team failure. But I'm saying if these are your guys have to show up in games like this. Right?
They absolutely do. They do. This is obviously it's the regular season, but this is playoff baseball.
Yeah.
That series is playoff implications, playoff baseball, playoff atmosphere. And you want to see your big guns show up and produce and lead your team, and it didn't happen.
No.
Those numbers are crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Swanson and Olson combined for 9 hits. 6 of them were home runs. Each one of them hit a home run in every game. Each game they hit a home run. And see, that's showing up.
Yeah.
That's how you show up for a series like this. That's how you show up for a game like this, and for games like this. And I just think the Mets did not show up. And again, part of it, I believe, is a growth thing. I mean, again, you're talking about the Braves 5 years in a row now. More than likely, if they clinch the division this year, it'd be 5 years in a row that they win a division. But these are the World Series champions, right? They're battle tested, they're playoff tested. They know how to play games like this.
Yeah.
Right. And the Mets aren't a team that's a perennial playoff team. They have a lot of new faces on their team and so forth, and they don't. And so I think part of it, to be fair to them, is they have to grow into this, and they have to realize that these games are different. And when they play and they get to the postseason, hopefully they will take some of this with them and realize they're going to have to up their game. And they're going to have to bring the energy and bring the production, because there's a big difference, Rob. You know this as a Yankees fan, perennially in the playoffs. There's a big difference between playoff baseball and regular season baseball.
Oh, yeah. Huge difference, man. Even just the crowd atmosphere, it changes. It absolutely, everything changes, man. The magnifying glasses on you, it's something different, man. And you have to step up, especially when you're going against your rivals. It's a whole different atmosphere, man. I remember even just last year being at Fenway Park in that, I think it was the last series between the Yankees and the Red Sox. Nothing was established yet in the playoffs. Yankees were still trying to get in, all that stuff. And the atmosphere at Fenway was very different than if it was a game in May or June. But being in there late September, seeing the crowd, the players, that's where you separate players. You know what I mean? You see who's ready for the playoffs and who's still a little bit shaky. So that's a great point. The Mets haven't been here yet. They haven't experienced the success, which it sometimes comes at a price, and they're seeing it now. So hopefully, like you said, they can grow from this and take this experience into the playoffs and show up when it matters.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. I would hope so. And I think if the Mets do end up winning the wild card, which, again, the Braves are likely to win the division, it might just be a formality at this point, right?
Yeah.
And if the Mets end up with the wild card, they're going to have the 3 home games, if they, you know what I mean, at Citi Field, right? and it's either going to be against the Padres or the Phillies. I think the Phillies are a game behind the Padres, so it's not as if Philly is out of it. In terms of becoming the fifth seed,
Mm,
right? So the Mets could end up playing Philadelphia. But whoever they play, they'll be playing at home. And, that dynamic you spoke about with the crowd being different, maybe it should benefit them, right?
yeah,
And if they could take care of business in the wild card round, um, that maybe erases the bad taste here from losing to the Braves here at the end of the season. And then they have an appointment with the Dodgers, which, quite frankly, Rob, I think will allow them to breathe because no one will expect them to win that series,
that is
right?
very true.
And
The
so they can
Dodgers.
play freely.
Yeah, it's the Dodgers. Everyone is expecting the Dodgers not so much to run through the National League, but they expect it's World Series or bust expectation wise
Right.
for the Dodgers. So yeah, I think if the Mets have to go against the Dodgers, I like the matchup. I think the Mets can beat them if their guys step up.
Yes.
I think they can go toe to toe with the Dodgers, and there's a chance they can beat them. And like you said, they'll be the underdogs going in, so it's very little pressure on them, and a lot of pressure on the Dodgers to win that series.
Yeah. But I think of the big three in the National League when you think about the Dodgers, Braves, and Mets. The one thing that separates the Dodgers and the Braves from the Mets is that both teams have multiple players who can change a game with one swing.
Hmm.
And the Mets don't have that. The Mets have to kind of piece it together most of the time. You know, Alonso, it's not like they can't hit, but then they're not they're not a big bopping team. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so, Alonso is their guy, but they don't have a lot of other real threats. I mean, Lindor hit 25 home runs, so he's no slouch. But the Braves and the Dodgers both have so many guys, who can, a 3-run deficit or a 2-run deficit is gone, right? With a 3-run shot by somebody. You know what I mean? And it's all up and down the lineup. They can do that to you.
yeah, and I think
And
that's one of the things that
right.
we spoke about at the trade deadline is the Mets needing that impact bat
Yeah.
that they didn't get, and I think in games like that is where you see the difference.
Yeah. Now they did bring up their highly touted prospect, and some are saying he's the number one prospect in all of baseball, Francisco Alvarez. They called him up as the right-handed bat, put him in as a DH, put Darren Ruff, who has failed miserably in that role for the Mets since the trade from San Francisco. They had placed him on the injured list, and so they had Alvarez come, and he got the righty at bats in this series at the DH spot. Wow, let me tell you something, man. That kid is swinging from the bus. You know what I mean? Like he he had eight at bats in the series. He swung at the first pitch all 8 times.
Wow.
He had some at bats where he struck out on 3 pitches and he swung at all 3 pitches. I mean, I understand. I understand being aggressive. You know what I mean? I get that. You want to be aggressive. I get that. I can understand you wanting to be aggressive. But I want to tell you something. He's 20 years old. You're in the big leagues now. You're in a big series against the defending champions. It didn't take them too long to figure out. We don't have to throw this guy a strike.
Yeah.
He's going to swing anyway.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an auspicious start. And again, it wasn't on him why the Mets lost this series. But I found that to be both amusing and frustrating. Like, dude, what are you doing?
Man, I listen. Number one prospect. I think he's just trying to make an impact, especially in a big series. But hey,
Not that way, man.
yeah,
I mean, come on,
man,
guy. But in any event, look, the Mets are going to go to the postseason. I'm sure they'll be part of your postseason analysis, which we're gonna, I'm sure, get in a couple of days. and we'll see what happens. I think it's good that they're going to play these 3 games against the Nationals. They'll have an off day on Thursday, and then it's showtime,
Yeah,
right?
man.
So it's not a lot of time to be thinking about it and crying in your milk for the New York Mets. So um, there you go. So Chip Carey should be happy. The Mets came to Atlanta, and they got their butts kicked. Um, let's switch gears, man. What's up with your boy Aaron Judge, man? He can't hit home runs anymore. He's stuck on 61.
Man, it's time to send him to the minor leagues, Jeff.
Send him down. This guy can't hit.
Man, I don't know, man. I think pitchers have finally figured out. We were just joking about this offline. They finally figured out that if you go away, so far away that he's just gonna take walks, he's not gonna hit the home run. And I think
Yeah.
61 home runs in, they finally figured this out. But listen, man, if I'm Judge, I'm gonna take a softball approach here, and I'm gonna move around at the plate. When I see that ball coming, I'm going to take a couple steps in, and I'm going to swing at that ball outside. I think he has the power to do that. Maybe flick one-handed over the fence, something, man. Because it doesn't look like anyone wants to pitch to him to give it up. Now, I will give credit to some pitchers. They are going after him, and he is striking out. But for the most part, man, everything I've seen is low and away, like obviously pitching around him. And you hope in this last series of the season that he gets at least one mistake where he can knock it over the fence and finally put this to rest, man.
Yeah.
But I think he'll get it. He'll get it done.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's funny because I thought that he had it in the bag. And in fact, I thought he was going to take a run at getting close to 70. I didn't think he was going to get there, but when he was on that tear as he went through the 50s,
Yeah.
it seemed like he was going to do it, and he was hitting multiple home runs and all the rest of it in the game. And then he was stuck on 59 for a while. Then he got 60, and then he was stuck on 60 for a good while.
Yeah.
And then hit 61 finally, and now we got 4 games left, and so we'll see what happens. But so he's going to end up. I think he's going to end up with the record, but he kind of gets there, huffing and puffing. It seems, you know what I mean?
Yeah. He'll get it. He'll get it. Matter of fact, I'll make a prediction. He's going to get it that first game against Texas.
Okay.
He's going to get it over with. That way he can kind of do what Albert Pujols is doing right now, where he's just kind of adding on to that 700 plus.
Yeah.
That's what Judge is going to do. He's going to get it out the way first game, and then we'll see how many he ends up with.
Now the Yankees are going to have a bye in the first round, so that's going to be good for them. And again, I'm sure. Well, you won't be talking about the Yankees in your first playoff sort of preview, but at least they have an opportunity to get some rest, get some guys healthy, set up their rotation, and then go from there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. But like if things were to end now, and if the top seeds in the wild card emerged, who would the Yankees play?
I think right now is it Tampa?
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's Tampa or the Guardians. I think that's the series.
Because Tampa right now, are they the last wild card?
Tampa is the first wild card, right?
I don't know. I was asking you.
Oh, no, Tampa is the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've shot down a bit. Toronto, Seattle, and Tampa. Shout out to Seattle, by the way. Ending that playoff drought.
Right. They broke the drought. And because Toronto is firmly entrenched as the first wild card. They got a 2.5 game lead. I shouldn't say firmly entrenched, but 2.5 games lead. You would think they're going to hold on to that first wild card spot. And Seattle has a game and a half lead on Tampa. So Tampa right now is at the bottom. Is going to be playing the Guardians, right?
Yes.
Right. And so it seems to me Houston's going to play the winner of the Guardians Tampa,
Yeah.
right? So, wow. The Yankees are going to they're going to face the winner of Toronto Seattle. If things end the way it is today, they would face the
Actually,
winner of,
no. So if it ends today, the Yankees play the Rays or the Guardians, and then Astros play Mariners or Blue Jays.
really? Why is that?
That's interesting. I'm not
Because
sure.
that's not how it is in the National League, right? Because
National League, the
aren't the
Braves would
Dodgers?
play.
Oh, the Dodgers are getting the winner of 4 or 5.
Yeah, so the
Right,
Braves
I
would
get it.
play
Yeah,
Phillies,
yeah, yeah.
Cardinals. Yeah.
Right, because the whole idea that the Guardians supposedly as a division winner are a really good team. I get it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird. It's sort of like St. Louis Dodgers, the
Yeah.
Dodgers. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
they're supposedly so good at their division winner. That's right. Okay. So, and
I
if the
like that
Guardians
matchup.
held serve, then they'll play the Guardians.
Yeah.
Good for the
I
Yankees.
I kind of like those either one of those matchups, to be honest.
Sure.
The Rays are always beat up. They're all beat up this year. And the Guardians, they have great pitching. I'll tell you that. Great pitching.
Yeah.
And just offensively, I think the Yankees can get through, especially the way they've been swinging lately. And I don't think the Guardians have the bats to beat the Yankees.
Yeah, but remember we were talking about, the teams that got to go to Cleveland in
Yeah, that's
October.
true.
It's going to change. That's the one thing about October baseball. Offense changes. The air is heavier, especially in the Northeast, and balls that were like home runs during the regular season, they die short of the warning track. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it becomes different, and then the pitching is just so competitive. Every pitch, right, is dealt with purpose. You know what I mean? And the playoffs a little bit different. But look, I think the Yankees should come out of that. I'm just hoping they do. And again, getting ahead about myself here, but I would love to see the Yankees and Astros, bro. I would love
Me
to
too.
see that series. But
I think it's inevitable, honestly. The Yankees have to beat the Astros. I think it's time for my sake. For my sanity. I think if they match up, the Yankees have to. They have to. They can't let this one go.
yeah. But I'm telling you, I mean, Toronto and Seattle, look, they got to play each other, so they're going to one of those teams is going to get knocked out. But, whoever survives that is going to be a tough out,
Yeah.
you know. So, but we'll see how that comes through. So when are you planning to do a playoff preview, man? I mean, playoffs are starting on Friday.
We'll have it before then. I'll get in the lab tonight. Maybe some tomorrow after work. I'll have it ready.
Okay. All right. Because we got it. We got to hear the bold predictions and all the analysis that goes with it. So looking forward to that. But let's switch gears and talk a little NFL. How about them Cowboys? And you know who I'm loving is Stephen A. Smith. Man, for 3 weeks now, he been eating big time crow, because he after they lost the first game, he was going crazy. The season is over. That's what he said. Now today he tried to put some sauce on it by saying, well, what I meant was
Mm-hmm.
the Cowboys aren't going to make the playoffs. That's what I meant by that. No, you didn't. He meant the season was over, as if they were just going to, get destroyed and not even be relevant. And as of right now, the Cowboys are 3-1. But put it in perspective, the Giants are 3-1 as well, and Philadelphia is 4-0 in the NFC East. But got to give it to Cooper Rush, man. He's been playing well, 3 games, 3 W's. And so he even has Dak Prescott talking about he's coming back in week 5. So Prescott is getting a little antsy, knowing he has to get back in there because Cooper Rush has been playing well.
Yeah, I think Prescott is remembering how he got the job. with Romo
Right.
getting hurt and him stepping in and doing his thing as a rookie. Obviously Cooper's not a rookie, but he's doing his thing. He's not losing games, and I think that's all they're all asking him to do is just don't lose the game. Keep us in it, manage, be in control, don't lose it. And he's doing just that, man. It's not flashy, like we were talking, I believe last week and off air. It's not flashy. It's not Patrick Mahomes. It's not, Joe Burrow. It's none of that. But he's doing just enough to win the game and not lose it and give it away. And that's all you can ask for from the backup QB.
Right. And their defense has stepped
Stepped
up.
up. Yes, they
You
have.
know, they have a really good front line and a good pass rush, and so they get after you, make life hard for you. And again, they haven't been playing, Hall of Fame quarterbacks other than Tom Brady in the first game, right? I mean, Joe Burrow is a good quarterback, but the offensive line for Cincinnati was banged up. Daniel Jones, is Daniel
Yeah.
Jones, right? And
Yeah.
Carson Wentz is Carson Wentz. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not like they were playing Aaron Rodgers or any of the top quarterbacks in the league, but that's not they shouldn't be faulted for that. You have to play who's on your schedule, and that's what they've done. And they're playing with a backup quarterback. So the other team, right? You know what I'm saying? They're not
Yeah.
playing a Hall of Famer either. You know what I mean? So to me, that's like a fair kind of a trade. But the Cowboys defense has stepped up, and I think the Cowboys have, played crisper football. They haven't been as mistake prone as we've seen them be too many times, and they're coming away with the W's. And so, you know how it goes, Rob. At the end of the season, you just count up the wins. That's it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And
All
because
that
along the
matters.
way, when you start losing to the Giants and you lose to the Commanders and so forth, and you end up 9-7 instead of 11-5, or I guess now it's 18 games. So, right? Is it 18 games?
Yeah.
17 games?
18 weeks, 17 games.
Yeah, 17 games. Yeah. So
17
you
games.
end,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So you end up 9-8, you know what I mean? Instead of, you know, having two more wins. Um, because you lose to teams like that, then you pay for it. So to me, you got to handle your business. And that's what the Cowboys have done. They beat these two teams at 3-1. And now, they play the Rams next week, but they're waiting to next week for that.
Yeah, I mean they're doing what they have to do, man. Especially beating a division rival
Yeah,
this past week. Like it's obviously you mentioned the Eagles 4-0, Giants 3-1. That makes a huge difference. 3-1 as opposed to 1-3. That makes a huge difference, man.
yeah,
And they'll thank it. They'll thank the fact that they've won these last couple games later in the season.
that's right. That's right. Now, something we haven't done, I think, at all during our time talking sports together is talk about the Jets. But the Jets are 2-2, so I think they're worthy of a little love today. Because you're a Jets fan, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
So come on, I'll give you some. The Jets are 2-2. I mean, I don't know
I'm
when
not
the last
celebrating
time you've
too
been able to
much.
say the Jets were 2-2 after four
Man,
games into the season.
I haven't seen the Jets at 500 in so long, Jeff. My goodness. Zach Wilson's back, wins the game yesterday. I'm happy with that. I'm not celebrating too much. I know the Jets are still in the rebuilding mode. They still got to piece things together. Zach Wilson did his thing. He still threw 2 interceptions. I'm waiting a few weeks. I want to see how this develops. I want to see them get Elijah Moore the ball some more because I think he's a ridiculous playmaker. I need to see him with the ball in his hands a lot more. You will see. I'm not celebrating. I'm not going to say too much, but teams that'll watch out. We're coming.
Well, they play the Dolphins this coming Sunday without the Dolphins will be without Tua, who's been going through that whole controversy with concussion. That's not a concussion that everybody but the Dolphins knows it's a concussion
Yeah.
situation, which is just really crazy. I mean, because it was no doubt he had a concussion after that first game on the Sunday. Um, a week ago Sunday, and then he gets knocked around again um, on the Thursday night game. And you know what's crazy about that though, Rob, is that he went to the hospital. They took him off on a stretcher, right? That was in Cincinnati. They took him off on a stretcher. He goes to the hospital. He gets released from the hospital, and then he flies home.
Yeah.
I mean,
The way
I,
they handled his situation, and I hope that he fully recovers, and when he comes back he's actually like 100% healthy and ready to go. But the way the situation was handled was so bad. Like,
yeah.
this guy's life was at risk. And I don't say that lightly. Like, head injuries are nothing to like scoff at. Like, this is a
Mm-hmm.
big deal, especially with all the stuff surrounding, the CTE and the concussions over the last few years, NFL getting sued, all that stuff happening. For this to happen so publicly, such in the line, in the limelight like this, it was embarrassing the way it was handled, man, from all sides. It was embarrassing.
Yeah. Yeah. It really was. And like you said, you just hope that, health wise, he'll come out of this okay. The NFL and NFLPA are looking into it. They're talking about changing some of the concussion protocols so that things like this don't happen again. And, when I saw the game a week ago Sunday, when he had the initial injury and he got up and then nearly collapsed because, he had hit his head on the turf, you just knew, uh-oh, he got a concussion. And he comes back into that game, and after the game they talk about he had a back injury. And that to me is just irresponsible. And
Hmm.
how that can happen in this day and age where so many protections are in place all across sports to protect player safety, health and safety. Something went wrong. Something went wrong there. And, hopefully it'll be rectified and we won't see that again. But the Jets do have a chance now with Tua being out. Maybe they can take advantage of his absence. Unfortunate for him, but that's how it goes in the NFL and in sports. Next man up, and the Jets have an opportunity perhaps to steal a win that they otherwise might not even be in a position to get.
Yeah, and they, at the end of that week, at the end of next week, the Jets may be in a tie for first place in the
Mm,
division.
mm.
That's all I'm gonna say.
I don't know, man.
That's all I'm saying.
Shades of Joe Willie. Hey, man. You never know. You never
You
know.
never know. The Jets are
Yeah.
coming.
Yep. Um, Real quickly, man, before we get on up out of here, you and I were speaking earlier today about the silence surrounding Brittney Griner. Um, Brittney Griner is still um, detained in Russia, and there was some momentum at a certain point. There was a lot of attention and publicity being generated around her situation. And we had gotten to the point where, the two governments, United States and Russia, were talking about, trying to reach a deal, some kind of swap. And we thought that might have meant that her release was imminent. But it's been several weeks now and it's been radio silent. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a sign that the talks, which are sensitive, are intensifying. And so that's why maybe everyone is on a gag order, so to speak. You got to hope so, because it has been really silent over the past several weeks and don't quite know what to make of that. But you have to hope that it's one of those no news is good news types of things for Brittany
Yeah,
Griner.
yeah, I agree. I hope we do hope that's the case. Obviously, this is very sensitive stuff. Has to do with governments going at it. and having these discussions. So hopefully, like you said, there's no news is good news, and it's kind of a need to know basis at this point. But we just continue to hope for the best, man, and hopefully, we have the outcome that we hope some point very soon.
Yeah. And you just wonder too, the way the war has been going, where Russia has actually been relinquishing, territory that they've previously taken. And then the New York Times had those intercepted calls where, you had Russian soldiers complaining about being out there fighting a war that they don't believe in, fighting a war that they don't believe they can win. That has to be an embarrassment for Russia. And so,
Mhm.
you just wonder if that plays into it as well. It's like, you know what, if we do that and then we give up this high profile prisoner that we said committed this great crime against our country, how does that look for us? So you just never know what's going on, right?
Yeah,
With all of this, but hopefully, um, there's progress being made behind the scenes, and Brittney Griner will be released soon. But at least wanted to mention that because it has been several weeks, and really haven't heard anything. So let's just hope for the best there, Rob.
yeah, absolutely, man.
Okay, brother. Well, we are going to sign off. We got to get you some time, man, so you can get some extra sleep. Take your Flintstone vitamins. Um, do what you got to do, Rob, because you got to come with it. You know,
Yeah,
you know, you're the guru here.
this is it.
You-
This is it.
yeah. So this is your time to shine and come forth with your playoff prediction. But I'm really looking forward to those. So we'll look to get those as the week unfolds. But all right, brother. Let's let's wrap it up here. We'll look forward to hearing from you on your playoff predictions. And of course, we'll be getting together a week from today if all goes well, and we'll come back with another edition of Sports 360. So thanks for hanging with me, brother, and we'll talk soon.